The people who are in power don't like the idea that you have free will. I'm convinced, man. And if that door is open and that serendipity descends upon you, I think they will be exposed to God.
Hello, welcome back to the channel. I'm Mitch and I am joined by my friend Cyril. Say hi, Cyril.
Hello.
And now say hi in your native language.
大家好，你好.
As you may have noticed,
Yep.
Cyril's native language is not English. So tell us, Cyril, where are you from?
I'm from China. The southern part of China is a province called Anhui Province. I'm from a small city called Shenzhen City. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you do with yourself, Cyril?
What I do with myself currently? Or I'm a student at University of Newcastle, and I'm now in my second year, and I've been in Australia for 1 year also, and now I'm doing social work. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what do you do in your spare time with your phone and your tripod?
Well, I'm a Steve, fundamentally. Mitch knows that, and apart from that, what else?
I was trying to get to the bit where you make videos as well.
Yeah, I forgot that. We should start all over again. Okay, I also make videos. I'm a content creator. Yeah.
Yes. So we'll have Cyril's channel linked below, so check that out.
Yeah, please check that out.
Yeah. Like, subscribe, do the things.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I brought Cyril onto the channel is, first of all, we're good friends, but also I just thought it might be interesting to have a conversation about, as you came from a non-Christian background, but, you've had some, a decent amount of exposure to Christians and Christianity since coming to Australia. I was just, thinking it might be good to, get to some questions about, like, what are the things about Christianity that seem really weird to you coming from, your Chinese background. So,
Yeah.
Maybe we'll start with just asking, what was your beliefs growing up?
The biggest belief of Chinese people fundamentalistic. We have no belief at all. So there's a good joke about that. Like a pastor in Qing dynasty, which is the last feudal dynasty in Chinese history. His job is to preach and to proselytize people to Christians and to Catholic Christians fundamentally. And he goes to a village and finds someone whose job is basically killing pigs and selling porks to other people, and he's just asking them, do you know God? They say, who's God? It doesn't concern me. And he says, God is someone who saves us. Oh, he doesn't save me. Then the pastor said, you should believe in him. He will save you. You'll have a better life. No, I'm gonna kill pigs, he said. So that's the way in which I think that's a joke. Firstly, but it's also a reflection of people's way of viewing Christianity in some sense in China, especially in a poverty-stricken era, which is certainly almost the case when you're looking at Chinese history. Most of the time, people are not having a filthy rich life or a decent life, let's say. They are trying to have a better material life. So the spiritual part, the spiritual realm, which I think Christianity attaches upon, is something off the table for a long time in Chinese history. But in modern day China, we've seen a business and economic boom. So a lot of people are having a better life. Then we have the luxury of discussing the spiritual stuff and different religious traditions. This is usual.
I reckon he's having fun out there, at least.
Yeah.
Anyway, don't mind the drone noise.
don't mind that. Where am I? Okay. So after the reform and opening up in China, and when people are having a better life, I think we see, and also when the economic is better, people tend to have more freedom and discretion to think about their spiritual life, and also the government will be more lenient in terms of the spiritual realm. So that's why we see a lot of religions booming in China. The traditional one, Buddhism, Islam, and also Christianity. So in my growing up, I've seen a fair number of churches. Even my city that I was growing up in is not a big city, but I've seen some churches there. The thing is that I don't think there is a vibe in Chinese society, even today, that people are trying to believe in Jesus Christ or Christianity fundamentally. Even if they do that, because of our proclivity to be utilitarian and to think that something must be reciprocal. When we are believing something, we should get something back. This sort of pragmatism. Even if somebody claims themselves to be Christians, I still doubt their orientation, motivation. So that's my make of it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I found that interesting that you were saying that in Chinese history, when people were dealing with more widespread poverty, that spirituality was lower. Not that I'm doubting the validity that was the case, but I found that interesting because I know in many of the Pacific islands, such as Papua New Guinea and the Philippines, places that are quite poor, that Christianity is very popular there, and people actually have what I would say is definitely a higher spirituality there than in modern Western kind of culture, Australia, Western Europe.
Yeah.
The numbers of people joining churches over there would seem to back that up. But that's interesting that people can respond to different kinds of economic situations in different ways.
Yeah, it's complicated. I would lump that to firstly economic factors, and another factor is because that we have a tradition of being a dictatorship featured country or authoritarian country for a very long time in our history. I think it's around maybe 3,000 years. So we can't get rid of that. One of the most glaring features I would say about an authoritarian state is that the people who are in power don't like the idea that you have free will, or you have your own religious system other than the orthodoxical system. So they think that if you're believing something on your own and you form a group, you form a party, and you form something outside the mainstream system, that will pose, and it most certainly will, a threat to the orthodox, let's say. So that's why one of the reasons I think Buddhism was so popular in the feudal area in China, because it's useful for the leader or the emperor of the country to use that as a tool to control people. It's like, here you go, you don't have a good life here, but what about you have an afterlife which could be good and which would be good? Then the people are just bearing up with what's thrown at them. So they say, oh, it's okay that to get more from me. It's okay that I pay more tax. It's okay. It's fine with me. It sits well with me. So when they're having this sort of idea, then there's not enough soil for them to develop a new system, let's say, or a different religion, let's say Christianity in China, because of this sort of suppression and repression of them. But it's now getting better, but still there are some restrictions on that, which is quite sad and unfortunate. But it's getting better, I think. Yeah.
Again, I find it interesting that different places, different things work. Like the feudal period in medieval history in Europe, the Catholic Church had a lot of influence and a lot of sway over people. And while a lot of people claim to be Christians, I think there was certainly degrees of people just being like, well, if I don't kind of accept this, then things won't go so well for me. And I do believe that there were ways that it was kind of a bit corrupt and a bit used to motivate people for political goals in a similar way to what you described Buddhism as being used for in China. So yes. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, it's good energy there. I think I think you're right. Yeah.
So since coming to Australia, have your views on any of these things changed, and what would how you describe your journey here?
First of all, I got more exposure here to Christianity. So, I get hounded by some lovely Christians on campus who are very kind to me, and they tried to invite me to their Bible studies, which, judging in retrospect, is very lovely, and I got a lot from them. And it's the first thing I got more exposure, and I find that it's ubiquitous. You can see the trace and shred of Christianity almost everywhere. So, for example, me and my girlfriend, when we are going to Sydney and we go into a hotel, we can see, beside the bed on the table there is a Bible. So it's so funny for a Chinese person to see that. How in the world could the hotel provide a Bible to the customers? It's so baroque, and but it's an indication that it's everywhere. So I think the second impression I got from here is that it's everywhere. So naturally I would ponder over the question, why is that the case? Why is it everywhere? Why it has such a profound influence on us? So, an example I come up with that might answer this question is that I went to a Christian camp where we are not just having fun. We're having fun, but at the same time, we're taught about Christianity. So when I see those people, we surround the campfire at night, and there's one host talking about how God saved us. It's so amazing to see that has this salutary and wholesome effect on people, to unite people and tell people it's incumbent upon you to be a good person and stuff. So I see the good and wholesome part of Christianity. It gives you a good conduct of life. So even though you're not a Christian person, you can see this is a good moral for you to live your life. So I think that's my third impression of it. What else? I think I've had a very good time with all my Christian friends like you, Mitch, and other Christian friends. I don't want to say my Chinese friend in a pejorative manner, but comparatively speaking, I think people here, if they are Christians and your friends, they're generally speaking more pure in their orientation with you. So they don't want to get something from you, and they want you the best, and they want to help you. They want to honor their God. So I think that's something quite amazing to see as well. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you've had a positive experience with Christians here.
Yeah, I'm glad as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the juicy content from my channel here is, what's the things about Christianity that seem really strange to you coming from the Chinese background that you've come from?
Well, if I can just give one example of that, it must be the bold statement that we are all sinners to begin with. So yeah, because from my point of view, it's like we are brought to this world like a white paper. So there's nothing, or there's some natural proclivity that we might have, but apart from that, I think we're like a white paper, and what's coming at us will be mostly determined by how you were brought up. So I think the statement that we are all sinners seems to be a bit baffling to me at first glance. Yeah, I think that's the first thing that I can comment about.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like the way you describe, your thoughts on why people turn out the way that they do. People talk about like this issue of nature versus nurture. Like, were you always going to end up that way, or is it just because of the way you brought up? So it sounds like what you're describing is you think it's like much more on like the nurture side of things.
Yeah. I'm pro nurture because it's like this. When you are let's say you are in primary school and you're not very good at math, and you're doing that every time you fail, and after one time you failed, you feel like, oh, so I will study hard, and you do study hard, and you get like 100 grade. I get number one, rank number one in your class, and that would just scare your teacher. He was saying, what's wrong with you? You must cheat. You cheat, and don't cheat again. And then I know people, who you are. People don't change. You will never change. What about the students? The trajectory of the student will change because he would have assumed that he would have a better life if he worked hard. But now that way is just being blocked by those people who are very smart and complacent. So that's why I think nurture is so important in our lives. Which I think, by the way, what Christian has done right in our society, because it does nurture people well.
Yeah, and the Bible does, like it tells us what our nature is like, and it also tells us to nurture people, raise up a child in the way he should go. And in Deuteronomy 6, the Bible tells God's people to repeat again and again to your children like the oracles of God. But that's interesting that the corruption of human nature was something that seemed like a very strange concept to you. Like I know one of my friends from Japan, she's talked about her story, becoming Christian, and for her accepting that she was a sinner was no way, I'm a good person. Look at these nice things I'm doing for people worse off than me. That was quite a hurdle for her to come and become Christian. So it's interesting that's been a strange concept to you as well.
Yeah, and the second thing that seems to be a bit odd to me is God seems to claim all the credit when we're talking about the good things that we've done, because we are made out of the image of God. But at the same time, when we're talking about the suffering part, it's like it's a consequence of the fact that he gave us the free will. We do whatever we want, and that's, according to the Bible, the very origin of our suffering. It's very logic and a worldview, but it's also very baffling to me to see that it seems to be a accountability shield. Like God is taking all the credit, but he's using the shield to fend off all the responsibility that he might have taken. So yeah.
Okay, from my perspective on this, in the Garden of Eden, God gave Adam and Eve the warnings, and he did give them a choice. He absolutely did give them a choice, and that thus the consequences of sin do in that way fall on humanity and not upon God.
Yep.
But he also gave them a very very clear warning, and before Satan could coerce Eve into eating the forbidden fruit, he had to basically undermine the validity of God's warning and claim you will not surely die. So from my perspective, God is completely just in not taking the blame for our sin. God did all he could to warn us without forcing our will.
I want to come back at this,
Sure.
if I can, so just a little bit. Firstly, it makes sense, but if I ponder over it, it begins to seem to be strange. So if God wanted us to have free will, but the free will leads to catastrophe and suffering. But if God knows that, why would he give us this free will if he knows there is a chance that you're going to suffer because of your stupidity and inadequacy? If God creates us, he's responsible for letting us have a good life. And it's inevitable that if there's going to be some quarrels and clashes between you and your children, you're going to discipline them in a way, and that's good. That would be good for them in the long term. But God, in my estimation, didn't do that. So that seems a bit strange to me.
Well, if we look at how God responded to Adam and Eve when they sinned, he did give them time to accept discipline and to accept to be, redirected. It wasn't just as soon as, Eve ate the fruit that he was like, all right, that's it, humanity's gone. He gave them space to make their choices, to respond how they wanted to. Eve ate the fruit, and then when, she and Adam saw each other, that was another moment of choice. What are they going to do? Are they just going to go to God and be like, hey, Eve did the wrong thing, she gets that, we're sorry, how do we make this right? Or they could have just had a fight and a difference of opinion, and then Eve goes off as the one who chose one road, Adam chose another road, and they just split like that. That's another theoretical possibility. What happened was that both of them, i.e. all of humanity, made a second choice that they would all engage in eating the fruit, and then when God comes looking for them, God knows where they are. God came, looking for them, calling out to them to give them the opportunity to respond. They respond by hiding and by blaming each other. If we say there's one little sin, it's spread into all kinds of other sins.
Can I understand this way? God wants us to respond in a good way when we err, but we didn't. So he's very disappointed.
God is our loving Heavenly Father. He's just right, my kids have chosen this. They've chosen to, run away from home and go off the rails kind of thing. And because he believes in giving us free will, that's what God's pure love is like, then he permitted us to do that.
Yeah.
But he didn't just, leave us completely to the mercy of sin.
Yeah.
In Genesis 3, God is pronouncing curses. You might read those and be like, oh, God's making things even worse. But if we read them carefully, God's trying to place boundaries between us and being completely in union and in harmony with sin. God says he put enmity between the serpent and the woman. He put hostility between humanity and between Satan, between pureness of evil.
Okay.
God put hostility in there, meaning that if God didn't put hostility in there, there wouldn't be hostility there. God put up guardrails of us having a conscience, of us feeling even if I'm not wanting to go pure evil, that hey, there are certain things that are just wrong, and we can more or less agree on that. There are certain kinds of laws that we find in countries all around the world, even if they have very different beliefs, like like not murdering people, not stealing, not
Of course, it's a given.
I believe this is like evidence of God putting up the guardrails between us and just complete like unbridled, unhinged sin. I'm not trying to take away from like your journey, and I just thought I'd like respond to that in something that will hopefully be helpful for you.
I'm convinced, man. I think it's a very sensible and convincing answer.
So I was just thinking, because Buddhism has like a very heavy, considering the afterlife element in it. Do you think for people from, a background similar to yours, that being told about like the Christian version of the afterlife, like do you think that would be like easy to accept or difficult to accept, or do you think people might be like, oh, that sounds too easy? I'm not sure I believe that. How do you think people might respond to that? How did you first respond to that, if you can remember that?
I think it's easy to accept in the sense that it follows the similar logic of Buddhism. So if you're doing good in your life and you'll get something good after life, and in a similar and different way, but they will get the idea, even though they're not brought up Christian, they will know that what Christianity wanted to emphasize is that if you have the belief in their ultimate God, then you have the chance to get an eternal life. So in that sense, it will be easy to accept. But in another sense, that wouldn't make much difference to them. As I said, the fundamental orientation, in my opinion, of Chinese people, most of them, is that they are quite utilitarian, and they're quite pragmatic. So if you are asking a taxi driver, let's say, he's busting his ass off to bring the bread to the table every day, to believe in God, his first impression and make of that wouldn't be like, I don't want to believe in that. His first make of that, possibly in my opinion, is what difference does it make? So in that sense, I think they are quite indifferent in that regard. But I still believe that no matter where you're from, there is a chance that the door of the transcendental reality will be open to you, by which I mean you're not just confined in the material chores of your life. You're being open to something higher than that. And if that door is open and that serendipity descends upon you and you grasp that chance, then maybe I think they will be exposed to God and exposed to the spiritual realm, which I think will be awesome. But it's very unfortunate to see that spiritual door hasn't been opened for a lot of people, but it's been opened to some people. I think that's good. That's my make of it.
So Cyril, coming from your Chinese culturally Buddhist kind of background, you're saying that one of the keys that would be kind of a determining factor in whether someone from a Chinese background would be likely to be open to Christianity is whether or not they've kind of opened the door to something beyond the materialistic, pragmatic, utilitarian worldview that they would grow up with.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's been lovely having a conversation with you, and
Likewise.
learning more about Chinese culture. My girlfriend's Chinese, so I like to try and learn more about her people and culture.
You'd better be on good terms with me. In case that you're having an argument, in the future, you can come and ask for help.
I'll try to behave myself.
Yeah, you should.
I'll keep that offer in mind.
Yeah, you should.
So if you haven't done so already, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, tell your friends, tell your grandma, show your grandma how to watch it, because maybe she's a tech-savvy grandma. I don't want to presume, but she might not be. She might need a bit of extra help to be able to watch this video. And I think it would just be lovely if you could help your grandma to watch this video.
So stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe to us both. Not just one.
Yes. He
be
has a
impartial,
channel too.
okay? Do be impartial. Don't be a partial person. Bye-bye.
See you next time.
See you next time.
再见。
再见。